I'm here with German filmmaker Uwe Boll. He came to prominence during the 2000s for his adaptations of popular video games. How you doing today?
Good. Christmas time, second Christmas day here in Germany. So we're
Okay.
eating a too much. Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Same for you.
Can you talk about how you became a filmmaker? What pushed you into that direction?
I mean, I was just a fan of films, basically. I loved films. My parents were from a little town in Germany, like no connection to the film industry whatsoever. And so I went to the movies very early on, loved the big screen. And so I felt, okay, I want to make films. I was in school. I got a super 8 millimeter camera and started doing like short films. And a guy from my class said also, I want to make films too, Frank Lustig. So, and then I started doing more with him. It's always easier. You have a partner or you have people you work with, and if you're down, they lift you back up and say, look, let's try another one, whatever. And so that was also the time where video cameras started to exist, basically VHS and Betamax and all that stuff. And then after the school was finished, I tried to get into the film schools, but it didn't work out. There were only two film schools at that point in Germany, and they were totally booked. So we made the decision, we need to make a film we can sell, like a real commercial kind of film with almost no money. And so we did German Fright Movie, 1991, what was a little like Kentucky Fright Movie was in US, like uh, yeah, a gag, funny scenes compilation. It was not a film with a stringent story or whatever. And we were able to sell it and raise some more money for another film from a video distribution company. And so it was learning by doing coming into filmmaking. And and then I kept studying at the university, but not film because I didn't get the spot there to back myself up if I would ever make any money with this. And when I was done with the university, I applied to be an assistant at a production company, and they took me. What was good because then first I got a paycheck every month, and I learned to do film productions, TV productions, how editing works, a lab works, because I did a lot of TV movies basically. So that was my film school by learning it on set basically, and yeah, and then I tried to make American films because I liked American films more as German films, and tried to raise some money for my first film. What was then in the year 2000 the film Sanctimony, was a serial murder film with like Casper Van Dien, Eric Roberts, Michael Pare. I raised $3 million with German investors to do this film, and that started basically my career in America. So and then I continued to make films, and what you said, the bashing from the video game based films, that was the curse and luck, right? So because the video game based films made me in a way famous and made me get more money, right? So I got money, I got bigger stars, I did films with Christian Slater and so on. And at the same time, I got bashed by everybody. Like, how could you? Why you make these films? The films are all crap, whatever. So, but I'm thankful that I had that approach to the video game based films, because otherwise I would not made like 35 films. Like, up to today, I did 35 movies, and it would never happened if I wouldn't made House of the Dead 2003. That started it all. Yeah.
Right. You talk about the video games films making you famous, and like you've worked with some amazing actors Ben Kingsley in the 2005 film Blood Rain. I wanted to, what was the experience of like making that film?
Yeah, the shooting in Romania was very bad. Like it was very hard. The food was bad. The logistics were horrible. But it was the film, I think, with the biggest stars I ever got together. I mean, when you see Blood Rain and In the Name of the King, they are both like like full of name actors: Michelle Rodriguez, Kristanna Loken, Ben Kingsley, Billy Zane, Meatloaf. So there was like so many famous people in Blood Rain, and they made it really bloody and gory. What I think at that point, where Underworld came, Resident Evil, this kind of films, Van Helsing and so on, I felt they were all holding back in effects and gore, and I really felt with Blood Rain, I want to do this, like the real, like chopping heads off, basically. And I think that I definitely did. Ben Kingsley is not like Gandhi, right? So in a real world, or Schindler's List or something. But of course, when you work with an actor like this, you are this kind of like, you see him as when he's sitting across of you, like he is one of the guys in the movies you watched with him, you know, that was not so easy. And also Jason Statham, for example, who is actually like he is in the movies. So, I mean, he's like a guy, I think he's not really, in a way, acting in the films he's playing, he just plays himself, similar to what Bruce Willis was early on or something. There are like these types, they are like this, and they are great at their character they play, you know, but they're not like Ben Kingsley can play everything. He can play a murderer, or he can play a hero, he can play a vampire. So it's a different kind of acting, I think, what some stars have. They just play always themselves, basically, in a good way. So because the audience believes them. So, but with Ben Kingsley, I mean, it was great to work with him, and yeah, but it was only 2 weeks in Romania. I had like one dinner with him, you know, and then I saw him on set, and he hated Michael Madsen. Was this kind of like brutal thing, because he said he doesn't want to do the sword fight with Michael Madsen, because Michael was uncontrollable. You know, he was this kind of like, you don't want to give him a sword, because by accident he could really hurt you with it, because he's not listening to the stunt guy, or, you know, the instructor. So so we shot that scene with Ben Kingsley, and Michael Madsen was a stunt coordinator, doubling Michael Madsen from behind. So he was like not actually swinging at Ben Kingsley. So yeah, but it was, I mean, in retrospective, it was a great shoot, because so much stuff in Romania happened where you would never be part in that world ever. You would never, I would never spend 2 months in Romania for what, right? So, but then you're there, and there were really little towns where they still go with the horse carriage. Like, you know, there are no cars, but they have all that great castles. So where you feel like you cannot make that in a studio or something, that looks like way better in real. And that was the reason we went there and shot. Yeah.
Wow, it's incredible. You talked about like, not getting like, good reviews, but like one of the films that like really got good reviews, and I love that film, is Rampage. It came out in 2009, and it's an amazing film. Can you talk about the experience of that?
Yeah, Rampage was really is one of my favorite films too. That's the reason also we have a trilogy in the end. We have all 3 films. And but the first one was really this kind of idea I had, to have a hero who's a total mass murderer, but you cannot really not feel for him. I mean, that is the twist in Rampage, I think, is that he's super clever, and everything he says, it's true. It's not like, I think the society around him is so full of shit, and he totally gets this, that he plays the society in his favor. Very cynical and violent film, but I think when you see now, look at the world right now, where we're talking today, 2023 on Christmas, right? It's so fucked up that I think a lot of things Bill Williamson predicted in part 3, with the riots in front of the White House and kind of a civil war in America and all that stuff, that was before Trump was even elected. I think a lot of things came true, what Bill Williamson says in Rampage. So that makes the film also aging well. Like, I think the film is not, when I go now to a convention or do podcasts or whatever, most of the people love Rampage and Postal. These are the two films, like Postal as the satire, like the total over the top political incorrect film, because stuff like Postal also would, nobody could shoot that now. Everybody would say, oh, cannot play this. You know, but because in Postal, I think we offended everybody and gave a shit about it as long as it's funny. So, and that today in the cancel culture world would never fly. Nobody would give me any money for Postal. So, in Rampage, I think has this kind of power, political power behind it, because it is so ruthless. It doesn't throw you a feel good feeling in the end. It's more this kind of like, what the fuck, like, wow, right? So I think, and that was the, I think my plan when I wrote it and when I shot it. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned like, as far as like cancel culture, I think like, a lot of your films like, they deal with content and themes that are like, today, like, would be, canceled. People wouldn't be so accepting of them. Like, I think of like, like Seed in 2007, and you use footage of like animal abuse and torture that you got from PETA. Like, could you talk about like, like, what made you like, willing to like, push the envelope, so to speak?
Yeah, with Seed, it was the same year where I shot Postal. So, and it was this kind of like, I felt with all this kind of torture porn horror, basically, what was out there, like the Cabin Fever, the Saw, the first one, or, this kind of stuff. And I wanted to do something even darker, like even more sinister about the humans. And I think to start with that PETA animal abuse footage where dogs getting burned alive, it sets the point, right? That are humans doing every day on the planet with animals, with other human beings, and that humans are not good born. Like it's always this. I think that Christian mythology is we're all getting born and we're good. No, we're not. I think humans are basically, in comparison to animals, actually total neutral. They can do everything. They can kill for fun. They can, animals would never do that. They just kill to eat, or to protect their kids and whatever, right? So, but humans, and we prove it every day on the planet, they just basically out of their mind. They have no moral, and that shows that film. What I wanted to show, and yeah, it's super brutal, and I wanted to make that point with Seed, a very like existential point. So that is also a thing why a lot of people, like typical horror fans, like the Halloween fans and whatever, they hated it because it made you feel bad. It didn't make you feel happy when you watch Friday the 13th or whatever. You know what happens. You just wait for the next kill, the final destination, and all that kind of films. I think they are fun to watch. And I wanted to do something different where you feel like, fuck, what's going on? Like that is really bad. And I had that when I watched as a younger, like I think it was 14 or 15, when Dawn of the Dead came, that from George Romero. That was not fun. That was like brutal. And it was like, wow, fuck. Yeah. So you got really scared in a way. What would happen if I would be in a situation like this, being in that big mall and the zombies outside? And so I like horror films that make you really scared, like the first Exorcist film or something, where where you're like, you feel really uncomfortable watching it. So yeah, that is why I did Seed.
Most definitely. You were talking about Postal earlier, and like, wasn't there supposed to be a sequel for Postal? Like, and it was like a Kickstarter campaign. Like, what happened with the Kickstarter campaign, and why was
Yeah,
it canceled?
it never came to fruition. It didn't raise enough money, so we didn't took the money. And but this, like last week, I talked to Running with Scissors again, and now they're okay with doing Postal 2. Because I had also the problem that the video game company didn't want to do Postal 2. But now they said, let's do another film. What is good? Because if I have their support, we can maybe raise more money. Yeah. So because a Postal, I think a Postal 2 cannot be like less funny, less harsh, less offensive as Postal 1. So that means I will not get a dime from a streamer like upfront. Maybe they buy the film after, but they will not say, "Oh, we finance your poster." They will not do it. They will be all like, "Oh, then you cannot do this, you cannot do that, you cannot do this." And that is the whole point from Postal, is of course, yes, you can, you know. And I think some TV shows like Family Guy, South Park, or whatever, they go far with the humor. They get away with stuff where in a real film you would get like canceled forever. So, but that makes me sad. I want comedies that are ruthless. They are like offending everybody to show this is art. Like I think in today's time, the biggest threat is that people are scared to say anything, that they're already scared to tell their opinion when it's not like the mainstream opinion. They're pissing in their pants to say it because they don't want to offend somebody. And also this, I love that new South Park episode about Kathleen Kennedy and Disney. You know, I was laughing because it's exactly what Disney is doing. They ruined all the franchises with all the total bullshit diverse stuff. And you know, like that you whatever, if you shoot now Hitler, like Second World War, whatever, you would have to have some transsexual playing in the film, or you're not getting the green lit. And you would say, but it's completely absurd. I mean, what the fuck, you know? So, and that is the thing. It's like, I hate that whole tendency of being political correct because they're scared. Otherwise, the Twitter mob is like going after them, you know, and they make huge mistakes in films, especially in that all their franchise films. I think they're all turning into garbage, and we saw it this year. Basically, every single big film besides Oppenheimer and Barbie tanked, and they were both originals. They were both not franchise films. They were just big commercial films, and I think that the Hollywood has to change, and they have to grow balls again, and say like, you know, I don't care what everybody thinks about the film. We make now a Western or we make a thriller, and we don't care. We just tell the story, how the story should get told. And we get the best people for the job or the best actors. You know, when I cast a film, whatever, I totally don't care about the race, religion, whatever. If somebody can play the part and fits, he's in, right? Or she's in. So, and it should be not like, oh, now we need 2 Asians, 2 blacks, 2 whites, 2 like transgender, or we don't have a film. That is idiotic to even think that in your head, that you have to think about that when you tell a story is already the total downfall. You know, it's a big mistake, I think, that Hollywood is doing that.
You know, what do you feel like was the film that caused like the most uproar? Like, you know, because like obviously like cancel culture was different, like, but like what do you think, like, you know, upset critics the most, or just out of the public in general?
I mean, it was a mix, right? I think Alone in the Dark got the worst reviews. They like lost their shit on the film. But I think political, definitely Postal got the biggest like negative response. And just because I'm finishing, like I wrote in Germany, like my autobiography, and we do it now in English. So I hope it can get out 2024. Like and I go over and update everything. And it's interesting when you go on Postal now, you see like Rotten Tomatoes, like 8%, like horrible vote. You see IMDb 4.1, very bad. But then you look at the readers like things, it's 77%, 5 points, right? So you have like basically the majority of the people that watched the film love it.
Right.
And it's the opposite to that ratings, you know. And I think that is also what happened with Postal. When I talk now with people tell me tons of times how much they love Postal. And when I shot in March in New York the First Shift, like a cop film, and I had Ethan Manikis editing it, and he is Robert Rodriguez editor, and he did like Sin City, From Dusk Till Dawn. And I met him by accident, and he said like, we love Postal. He said, like, we love that film.
Right.
Also Robert Rodriguez, right? So, and he said, I loved that film, that we were sitting there like, what the fuck, and laughed our asses off. And I have a lot of people, they told me this, but they never said anything in public about it because they maybe don't want to be criticized for it or something. But I know that Postal, a lot of people love Postal because it is what it is. So, but I had basically a scandal film when I came back to films here 2020 in Germany about a real case, and I shot the film. It's Hanau. It's like German speaking. It's out there in US on Apple and so on, but it's subtitled. And you have, because there was a guy, a right wing guy shot by Frankfurt here where I live, 9 people in like shisha bars, like more Turkish, Arabic people. And then he shot himself and his mother. It's a true case. It happened. And I did the film, and they all lost it on me. Like the victim families lost it on me. They wanted to stop the film. And the police and everybody lost it on me. The whole press in Germany wrote about it and said, boy, should never do the film. Before they even saw the film. So, and I said, like, you should never do the film, whatever. And so that was a real shit show, because I was in between the chairs. And I'm sometimes with the Soul on Wall Street, it was the same. I come to my own conclusions, right? So, and I did some research on that subject matter. It's my little dog here jumping up. So, and the situation was this: he was a lonely killer. He was a lonely, out of his mind killer, and a total racist, and killed everybody. So, but he was not what the victim families think, that the police helped him. The police didn't stop him. They knew what he was doing, but they didn't stop him because he was out there to kill Arabs, basically, right? But that is not true. That is just plainly not true. The police completely failed, that 100%. But it's a little shit town out of Frankfurt. It's not like a big city, right? And it was a Saturday night at 11 p.m. where you have one guy at the police office. So the whole shooting happened in 6 minutes. So to now blame the police that they couldn't stop the shooting is kind of absurd. I mean, how he should do that? But before he arrived, the first scene where already 7 people were dead, that guy was already in the next bar and killed the next people. And then he drove home to his house where he killed himself and his mother. And then the SWAT team came, whatever, but you cannot think that this goes so fast. So that was the thing where the parents hated me from everybody who was shot, because they wanted the big conspiracy because they sued the government, so. And the police hated me because I blamed the police in the film that they didn't took his weapons away earlier. Because the reality was he had weapons at home, but he was various times in psychological, like in a psych ward. And various times he popped up at the police and said, the FBI is listening to me, they chipped me, the CIA. So he was clearly like psychological over the hill, right? So, and nobody took his weapons away. I mean, that should be the first act, I think, if somebody has weapons, to say, we need to take the weapons now, because that is a little too much what you bring here to the table. So that is why they all hated me and flipped out. Later, when the film came out, there were only 2 reviews about the film. They were both positive, but then nobody cared anymore, right? It was all about, I'm doing that film. So that was a very big backlash against me when I did that Hanau film.
Do you feel like, because you've been bashed like so much by the critics, that like kind of like lead to you like taking a hiatus from films? Because like didn't like in 2016 you announced that you were retiring from film? I know like you eventually came back, but
yeah, there was, I mean, it had various reasons, right? I was kind of tired that if you make great films like Rampage or Assault on Wall Street, Darfur was very good. I think Tannerets, the Vietnam War film, was good, and then you get always the same. That was then I got mediocre reviews for it. And I felt, no, these are not mediocre films. That
right.
films should be like top notch in
Yeah,
the
like
annual parts of,
Rampage is
that.
one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time. I think that's incredible, like filmmaking. Like I love a lot of your other films as well. Like, but I think like that doesn't get a lot of credit, like, for like how just boundary pushing it was.
Yes, and I agree with you. I have to say, like, and I'm a big film buff myself. I watched tens of thousands of films during my life, and I felt like, no, they're not getting properly like response. You know, the Rampage one, you cannot say the film was okay. That is bullshit. I mean, that film was this kind of surprising, like the usual suspects were. Or
Yeah,
Memento films, they made like tons of prizes, started careers, right? And that was this kind of film because it came from Uwe Boll, it just was listed like okay, but it's not fair to a film like this. So and 2016 was also like the end of Blockbuster Video and so on. And my films always made a lot of money in home video,
right.
DVD, Blu-ray, and so on. And that was all over. And I didn't saw at that time that the streamers would replace something like home video. I felt like they are not financially, also they cannot make you that money what home video was doing. So that was why I retired. It was both together. You're kind of tired of always the same reviews, and at the same time you feel there's also no more financing. I mean, who should give me money, or who should I recoup, what money I can recoup? So but then 2020, I felt I want to go back because I really want to make films. My whole life is in a way filmmaking. And at the same time, I saw so many streamers now coming that there's maybe an opportunity that you can sell films to everywhere, and you
Right.
can also post them yourself and do AVOD, like advertising driven VOD revenues and stuff. I think that is the biggest chance for independent filmmakers now, is to basically do a campaign yourself and put it out there, and try to make money on Apple, try to activate people to pay $3.99 on Amazon or whatever, and skip that whole begging for money part, and trying to monetize it wherever, YouTube, wherever people can pay something, or where advertising generates based on clicks. And I think that makes a lot of people, I think, hope to be able to put films out and make some revenues. And we have to say, in total, the production, like the equipment, there's no film material anymore, no lab costs, right? The post production, it got cheaper. It got way cheaper. So $250,000, you can now make technically a film what looks like a theatrical film. Of course, if you want a big action, you want big actors, whatever, all that money comes on top. But in earlier years, 500,000 were just gone for the lab, the 35mm cameras, and all that stuff. They were like a
Right.
given that was the technical cost to make a film, including the editing, the mixing. Everything was more complicated as it is now. And that is a chance.
What are your thoughts about that though, the transition from like, film to digital? Do you feel that's a good thing for filmmakers or
Yeah, I mean, I've always you have this kind of, you're on one side sad because I love 35mm. It looks great, But now, when I see my first Shift film, it will come out in May, June with Quiver in the US in some movie theaters, and then digital. It's shot on the mini Alexa, and in CinemaScope, it looks totally like a theatrical film. And you can, in post production, you can twist everything. It looks like, you can put any color on. The lights are so much easier. If you shoot now something, you basically, with this kind of cameras, you don't need a big light setup or grips. You can just shoot it in a normal room without any additional light. And later in post-production, because it's 5K, you can totally do whatever you want with it. So there are things. I remember when we shot on 35mm, where it was always like, oh, hopefully the lab doesn't call. That was too dark. We can never save it. You have to reshoot it, or stuff like this. Technical issues on 35mm were way more happening, and that is so a luxus now that you can shoot in this amazing quality without a lot of lights. You save crew too. You don't need so many electricians anymore, so many grip people. So that helps also.
Uh, you mentioned First Shift, and it's coming out next year. It's like this thrilling crime drama that shows the realities of life as a cop in New York City. Can you tell us anything else about the film?
Yeah, so that was, I was writing down ideas for 2 years about like different scenarios for different films. But then I recognized um, it's not, this cannot be a film, this cannot be a film, and this cannot be a full film. But I felt if I put it in a story that this all is in one film, but it's connected because of police people, they go from crime to crime, or from set, from a story to story. So we're telling in the film the story of the two cops, Kristen Renton and Gino Pesi. They have to work the first day together. She's from Atlanta and just came into New York, and so they're in Brooklyn. And he doesn't want a partner because his kid died and his wife left him. And since then, he basically works alone. But his superior, the captain, she tells him like, no, it's actually not allowed also to go alone as a police officer. So she said, no, you have a new partner, it's her. And she's full of energy and he's totally negative, but it's great for humor, right? So it's like they, of course, are like this kind of, she tries to make him the friend, basically, and he is totally blocking her off. But it's a lot of humor in these interactions. But the stories I wrote down before, they were like, what is if a guy gets a heart attack and gets transported away in a supermarket, and his dog uh, is still leashed outside? So what would happen to that dog? Like, what would happen to it? So that was the one idea I had, what is in the film now. And we tell the whole story, how this all turned out, and it has a happy end. I'm a big dog lover. So, but on another one was it's a mafia side story with Daniel Soli. He's great. He was in the Juice with James Franco, the main evil guy, and Gary Pastore. He was in all the Scorsese films. So where they have to get the money or the drugs out of a guy, but his kid is at home too. And then he basically makes the father choose, we shoot your kid or we shoot you. Okay. And he totally breaks him apart, and the father picks the kid, that the kid gets shot. And then they shoot the kid, but they shoot him too because it's a piece of shit. So, like this kind of like, I mean, if you give your kid up, you should die too. So it's a very hard scene, but it's an amazing, amazing side scene, because then the police comes and the other mafia people coming. That's a great story. And I had only that idea to create a scene where you have to pick, you are alive or your kid is alive. So what would you do, and to not go the high road, to break apart and then feeling like, I want to live. So, and the third party is the third story is about a guy who is a drug user, but he found a new wife. She has a kid. They're getting good along, but the kid is resenting him, like resentful to him. And then he starts using again. And then they want to leave him. And then he snaps, and kills everybody. So it's also a very hard. So the individual stories are very hard, but the police around, I think that couple, they were so good, the two actors, Gino and Kristen, was so much fun to do it with them. They bring also a lighter tone to the film so that it's not a total downer. It's not like this kind of total depressing police film, but it's a harder police film. But I love to do it, and I love New York. You cannot really copy New York somewhere, and I think that was great. I mean, I'm very happy with the film, and I'm happy that the film comes out at least on a few screens. So I'm a big cinema fan, and that is one of the bad things now with the streaming. You don't have this movie theater, home video, blockbuster, then TV anymore, right? So it's a lot of films that just boom, they're coming out and then they're gone. like
Right.
forever. Like, you know, and you never have the director's commentary. You never see a making of what you had on the extras on the DVD, and I hate that.
Most definitely. You know, from the perspective of a director, can you give like, you know, any advice to actors? You know, like what's something you've learned, like what makes a good actor?
I think don't try to act, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's you know, it's this kind of like study your character, make yourself your mind up what kind of character you are, and adjust also to. Um, I think a good actor can adjust to the situation too. You know, like when Daniel Soli played that mafia guy who kills the kid and the father. So he told me later he planned to play that totally different, but then the other guy, the father guy, was so loud and aggressive because he's a drug dealer too, right? So and he was so aggressive playing, even if he's the victim and has the gun on his head, right? But then Daniel said he made the direct decision not to yell back, but to lean back, you know, to play it more like, so you want to play it this way? Yeah, let's talk about it, right? So, and he totally played this kind of more thoughtful, calm killer at that point, but he planned to do it totally different. And that is a great actor, you know, because you don't want like two people yelling at each other and the end they shoot, you know, it's that wouldn't work. It works only that the other guy's so aggressive, like, why you tie me up, you fucking idiot, I bring you the money, you know, he plays it the whole time like, you get the money, I want to talk to your boss, you know, and he's just like I mean, he has another guy with him too, and he's just like sitting there and saying, yeah, I don't think you know in what situation you are. So, and that makes it very frightening. And I think that are the things I think the good actors in a way do the prep themselves, you know, and are like on set, uh, ready to adjust to the situation and are not in love with what they maybe thought is the best way to play it, because now you have all the other actors around you and you have the situation. And I think that is very important to adjust to a situation like this. And I have to say, in New York, there were so many talent. There were all the actors for all the small parts. They have that instinct. They did it right. And that you, for example, in Vancouver, you don't have that. You have in Vancouver, you have some good Canadian actors, but overall, they are 10 to 20% less skilled as you have it in New York or you have it in LA. It's the truth. I mean, the Canadians will not, they hate me for it if I say it, but you know, where you have more the feeling like they still say the lines they learned,
Yeah.
but you don't want that as a director, right? So you want that. I don't think that you know. I don't want that. It's a stage play or something. I want that as live. What I'm filming. Could be that the recording gets here interrupted. I see here. You have less as a minute.
Minute, yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time. You both I really appreciate you. And I love your work. Like, you know, no matter what the critics say, like, you know, some of your films, man, Rampage, you know, Blood Rain, you know, I really admire your work. So thank you so much for taking the time. It was really a pleasure to speak with you.
We do another round another time
Most
when you want.
definitely, I'd love to.
We do another round. Send me the link. I will post it everywhere.
Definitely.
Okay.